All right, good morning. I'm proud to be standing on the most secure border in the history of the nation today because of President Trump and his leadership. I'm proud to be standing next to the CBP Commissioner, Rodney Scott, who helped the President to create the most secure border in the history of this nation. The data proves it. Look, when I came back the second time out of retirement with President Trump, he asked me to oversee three things. Securing the border, because the last 4 years in the Biden administration, there was an open border. Not because of mismanagement, not because of incompetence, by design. So he asked me, work with the professionals and create a secure border. And Rodney's going to talk about that a lot more in detail in a minute. He wanted me to oversee the historic deportation operation. And that's exactly what we're doing. Promises made, promises kept. The third thing, go find missing children that the Biden administration released unvetted sponsors. Because of the open border the last 4 years, over 500,000 children were smuggled in this country. Last administration couldn't find 300,000 of them, approximately. Under President Trump's leadership, we have located over 62,000 children that the last administration weren't even looking for. Again, promises made, promises kept. And we're going to continue running down every lead of every child, and when we finish all those leads, we'll go back and do it all over again. As long as President Trump's in the Oval Office, we will never stop looking for these children. Now, I want to be clear. The 62,000 children were found. Some were perfectly safe with their families. They're just hiding out, didn't want to be deported, whatever. But many were in sex trafficking and forced labor. One's too many. So President Trump saved thousands of these children's lives and their futures. Secure border is saving thousands of lives every year. Under the last administration, over 4,000 aliens died making that journey. With a secure border, lives are being saved every day. Sex trafficking has plummeted. Fentanyl has plummeted. No inspected terrorists coming across borders plummeted. A secure border means stronger national security. But most importantly, it means saving lives. Saving aliens' lives and saving Americans' lives. I want to end one more thing before I turn it over to Rodney Scott. The attacks on the men and women of the Border Patrol and ICE are disgusting. These men and women put their lives on the line every day for this country to remove the worst of the worst. One of the reasons we have the most secure border in the nation right now, in addition to President Trump's leadership, Commissioner Rodney Scott, and the men and women wearing green and tan and blue, is because of what ICE is doing in the interior. The Trump administration has sent a clear message. We are going to enforce immigration law without apology. That message is sent throughout the world, which means the most vulnerable people in the world are not going to give their life savings to a criminal cartel to come to a country where they know they won't be released. That alone is saving thousands of lives. Children aren't drowning in the river. Women ain't being raped by the cartels. And again, less drugs means more lives saved. President Trump and this administration is saving thousands of lives every month, and that's just a stone cold fact. I'm honored to be here with Rodney Scott, who's not only a friend. Together, we got over 70 years, 70, on border security, national security, and immigration enforcement. I couldn't be prouder standing next to a champion like Rodney Scott, who is well respected by every one of these people wearing this uniform. Rodney Scott, you, go ahead.
It's my honor to be back in sunny San Diego, even if it's not quite as sunny today as we're used to. I did want to thank Tom, and I want to highlight for everybody, this is where Tom started his career. This is where I started my career. But also, this is where the strategy that President Trump endorsed for border security really started and was proven out. So I thought it was a very fitting place to come out and talk about the successes we've had over the last year. And Tom highlighted it, but this is, and I think you could ask anybody that's actually done this job that's a border security professional, we're currently experiencing the most secure border this nation has ever seen. We're at 92% identifying illegal entries, 92% lower than the peaks during the Biden administration. But let me put that into context for you a little bit more. In an hour and a half during the Biden administration, we caught more people than we're catching and seeing across the border illegally in a 24-hour period now. But why did we see that reduction? I want to be very clear based on my professional experience. Why are we seeing that reduction? We're seeing that reduction because President Trump came in and implemented policies and provided top cover for the men and women of CBP and ICE and other agencies doing border security to literally shut down the draw. What was the first thing we did was we made sure that we kept people in custody and throughout their process until they were properly adjudicated. If they were subject to it, if they were immediately illegal entering, they were subject to ER. But the thing is, we ended catch and release. And that was a huge draw, people being released into the United States. We are prosecuting people for illegally entering the United States today at an unprecedented level. We are prosecuting everything we can. If you assault a Border Patrol agent, a CBP officer, an ICE agent, we're going to prosecute you. If you lie to a Border Patrol agent or any federal official, we're going to prosecute you. We're literally just enforcing the laws that were already on the books. We're making sure that there are consequences in place. I want to highlight, this is not just CBP. I'm here representing CBP, but President Trump sent a clear message to his entire administration that border security is important, and you're all going to be on board. So both Tom and I participate in a call like 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. And I can tell you this government, the entire federal government, is united in a way I've never seen in my entire career, focused on one thing: putting Americans first and making sure that we simply know and control who we're allowing into our home. Because I want to remind all of you, why does this really matter? Border security is national security. Sometimes I think people overly complicate this, but you need to think of it as simply just like your home. If you cannot identify and control and know who and what goes into your personal home, you have no personal security. And as a nation, if we can't identify people entering our home and then make conscious decisions based on laws that are put in place by Congress, who and what we're going to allow into our home, any conversation about security is a fraud. Customs and Border Protection, ICE, under the leadership and guidance and support of President Trump, is making sure that we simply can know first and foremost, and that's what a lot of this infrastructure around you is for. We can positively know anything and anyone coming into this country, and then we can make conscious decisions consistent with federal law on who we allow into our home. Because at the end of the day, it is our home. And we're talking about who are we letting next to our children? Who are we letting next to our families? What products are we allowing into the United States? The other piece of this is we slowed down this flow. What did that really mean to America? That meant we put Border Patrol agents, ICE officers, CBP officers back to doing the enforcement functions that you as Americans hired them to do, instead of administratively processing fraudulent immigration claims. I want to give you an example. Just at our ports of entry alone, by shutting down the fraud, we were able to take approximately 16,000 man-hours, 16,000 hours, and put them back on enforcement duties at the ports of entry. What does that really mean? That means we're interviewing people that are coming to the United States. We're asking them questions we didn't have time to ask before. We're looking in cargo trucks. We're looking at trains. We're looking at ships. We're looking at containers. We're making a conscious decision to know who and what comes into this country consistent with law. And that's just the ports of entry. In between the ports of entry, Tom talked about the unaccompanied alien children and the exploitation. Under the massive crisis that Biden intentionally created, where we had flows of people that we literally had no time to talk to anybody, it was just processing people through, we had no idea what we were dealing with. Today, every single unaccompanied child that comes across that border is getting a good face-to-face debrief, an interview, if you will. We're carving out we call them children, but the teenagers that are gang members that are actually working for their cartel, bringing others across, we're carving them out. They're smugglers. We're going to prosecute them just like anybody else. They're facilitating, they're smuggling narcotics. We were not able to do that before. But just as importantly, we're able to identify children that are being trafficked, children that are being abused, and we're being able to get them the protections they need and carve them out. Why? Because the men and women to my right and around us today actually have time to do their job now, to actually interview people, figure out what's going on, and make a conscious decision of who we prosecute and how. You know what else we're doing? We're saving the economic. We are empowering the economy of this country through making sure that we rebuild a middle America by having fair trade. You know, we're between the fences, but please don't forget it's Customs and Border Protection, and the economic security of this nation is just as important as the physical entries here. The President's tariff initiative has brought in over $223 billion in increased tariffs. But just as importantly, it's required new data to be given to CBP. So we're eliminating huge vulnerabilities that were being exploited by the cartel to bring in fentanyl and other counterfeit goods. We're actually doing a lot to counter national, nation-state, I would call it, threats of other nations that are trying to exploit our tariff system by what we call transshipments, shipping products through a bunch of different countries to get away from paying tariffs. Why do we have tariffs? Because we want the American worker to have a fair opportunity. We want American businesses to have a fair opportunity. Our Customs and Border Protection officers are identifying those transshipments, stopping them, finding companies, and we are actually empowering the economy of this country by making sure that we put America workers back first. Thank you again, President Trump, for fighting hard for the big, beautiful bill. A lot of the benefits, a lot of the things that you've seen were done through policy. They were done through brute force because the men and women of CBP and ICE actually are dedicated to this mission. But now it's time to lock it in. The big, beautiful bill provided significant funding to continue to build out the smart border wall system. I think a lot of people think of it as just this piece of steel. What we are building along the southwest border is a smart system. There's technology embedded in with it, plus the physical infrastructure. But bottom line, if you're in business, this is what it does for you. If you're a taxpayer, this is what it does for you. It makes every single agent and officer more effective. It allows that tax dollar to go significantly farther. This is an investment in border security over the long term that'll pay for itself. We're hiring more Border Patrol agents. We're hiring more CBP officers. We're hiring more ICE agents. We're hiring more air and marine interdiction agents. Together, we're going to continue to expand. Why? So on your behalf, we can simply know and control who and what comes into this country and make conscious decisions about it. We're expanding the Border Patrol fleet, and we're making it easier than ever for any illegal alien in the United States that wants to avoid the trauma of being arrested and deported to voluntarily leave. CBP has flipped an app that we used to have. Now we call it the CBP Home app. And we have a little thing going on right now, Home for the Holidays. Any illegal alien in this country can go on to that app right now, and we will help them get a flight back to their home country so they can be home for the holidays. And we'll even pay them $1,000 once they're out, because it's significantly cheaper than going through the entire process of tracking them down, arresting them, and deporting them. But please don't miss this. We will track you down, we will arrest you, and we will deport you, because the number one thing that stops illegal immigration coming across this border is changing the dynamic, not releasing them, and making sure that people know they cannot just freely move about the United States if they get past this little section of border. Last but not least, thank you, President Trump, for your policies, for your support. Thank you, Tom Homan, for your support here. But last but not least, let's not forget who's really doing this. The men and women in uniform, the men and women at ICE, every single day putting their lives on the line. Please give them your support and get out of some of the rhetoric. Just remember, our job is to know and control what comes into this country, and I think you guys are doing a damn good job at it. Please keep it up. Thank you.
Good morning. I wanted to talk about the growing role of Border Patrol in this area enforcement. It seems like it's coming out very quiet on the border. It's had an increased role. We've heard a lot about Boca, Reno, Chicago, and LA, but I think it's really across the whole country. The Border Patrol is supporting the mission and border enforcement. how many agents, if you could talk about that, and where are they, and what unique skill set did they bring that ICE may not have?
Thank you, Elliot. Good to see you again. So I do want to talk about the interior enforcement. So I just touched on it a little bit. If you can get through this little area here and think you're free, we're never going to win. There has to be consequences for illegal entry, period. ICE over the years, whether it be the enforcement and removal side or the Homeland Security investigation side, has always come down to the border and supported us historically. But it's a partnership. Department of Homeland Security was created for a reason. We each have our own fundamental capabilities, but we've always worked together. Right now, with the support of the Department of War and with all the infrastructure we're putting down here and the policies, it's given the United States Customs and Border Protection, both the field operations side and Border Patrol, a little flexibility that now we're taking the information that we've been collecting over the years of different individuals, the interviews we do of every single illegal alien at the border, we're taking that information and we're building out an investigative case. We're figuring out where were they going, what were they doing, and we're supporting ICE in those arrests to the maximum extent we possibly can. I'm not going to get into locations or how many staffing that we're given to it, because that varies dramatically. But we are working together in lockstep. When we started really ramping up the interior enforcement and it got a little bit of attention from you guys, almost overnight the cross-border illegal entries dropped by 1/3. And they've stayed down because the message sent to the world was we actually believe in the laws that we have in place. And just because you made it across this little line, just because you snuck through in the fog maybe one day in San Diego, you're not home free. We will come find you, we will arrest you, and we will deport you. Whether it's ICE, whether it's ERO, whether it's Border Patrol or OFO, we're one team, one fight.
And let me add to that. What President Trump did is a game changer. It's all the government on the interior enforcement operations. I've been on many of them. You got FBI, you got ATF, you got U.S. Marshal Service. You know, we got every federal law enforcement agency out there, like ATF and DEA. And what's good about that, Elliot, is that when we find an illegal alien that has drugs, DEA's on the scene, prosecute, then we'll deport. They have weapons, ATF's there to prosecute. But all the government and the Border Patrol coming to the interior is a game changer. We're in a position now where Border Patrol can actually come to the interior because the border's the most secure ever. So again, President Trump's plan was all the government, and the impact has been significant. We got over 600,000 removals already since President Trump's been in the Oval Office. That's already a historic record. But as we bring 10,000 more agents on, you haven't seen anything yet. Wait till next year.
Mr. Homan, the Navy has been given jurisdiction of the stretch of the border here. Tell me how that fits into your plan for increased enforcement orders.
I'll let Rodney talk about this because we're just talking about this with the chief earlier about the importance of maritime patrols. We knew when we locked the border down, me and Rodney discussed it many times, we knew when we locked the border down, they're going to take to the water. So President Trump has not only signed more Coast Guard boats to the water, more Navy vessels to the water, but air and marine operations down on the end. They put more watercraft in, Border Patrol more watercraft in. But I think Rodney can explain, we just talked about this morning, on the significance that has made to maritime patrols.
Thank you for the question. Both in the maritime and on the land border, national defense has always been a Department of War, Department of Defense responsibility. My entire career, we have always had military on the border. The difference between this administration and every administration in the past that I worked for, this administration actually tasked people to go back into law, read all the law that was on the books, and find every tool we could possibly use to secure the border in new creative ways. So the national defense areas, having DOD on the border and the authority that brings to them was one of those. Again, we've always had Department of Defense on the border, but when they're on their own property, they have increased authorities and responsibilities to actually arrest for trespass just like they would on any other military base. We've been doing this in Texas for a while. We're bringing it over here now. But really, tried and true, what it comes down to is it's all of government approach, leveraging the capabilities, making sure it actually creates a mechanism for the military to enhance their readiness at the same time that they're providing their national defense mission as well. we work in lockstep. It's been a huge force multiplier, and I really want to thank Department of War for all the assistance.
And don't forget, the mission right now, what we're doing right now is saving lives. Chief, can you come up and talk real quick about what we talked about this morning, the lives that have been put at risk at Maritime, and what we're doing in response to that, please?
So I think what's often overlooked in the process of human smuggling is all of the despair that is involved in that. People die at the hands of smugglers far too often. Just recently here in San Diego, we had 4 people die in the ocean at the hands of human smugglers who did not care about the lives of the people that they were smuggling. All they cared about was the thousands of dollars that they were going to make by exploiting those individuals that they were smuggling. And so now, because there's less people being smuggled in, that also means less deaths, less loss of life, and less abuse to those people being smuggled in. Justin Delatorre, Chief Patrol Agent, San Diego Sector.
Following up with the territory handed over to the military, I had asked Governor Gavin Newsom's office about that this week, and he sort of pointed out when Border Patrol personnel moving to the interior of the country and not basically doing their jobs here. Your response to that?
I'll say it again, we got the most secure border in history of the nation. So CBP, Border Patrol is helping ICE. They have Title 8 authority too, helping us to look for worst of the worst. And it's been a game changer. Bottom line, there's over 20 million illegal aliens in this country. We know that. Most of them entering through the Biden administration. At least we know that. I mean, it was announced over 18,000 no-inspected terrorists crossed during the Biden administration. We got a lot of people to look for. And despite what a lot of the media says, we are prioritizing public safety threats and national security threats. So I'm grateful that we got men and women in the Border Patrol, because of the secure border, can help us in that mission. We're outnumbered, but we're making it's a game changer having them on board with us. And let's remember, for those who want to say, okay, well, a lot of the people you arrested are not criminals. It's going back to Rodney says, we're sending a message to the whole world. We're going to enforce the law. And for those people who say, well, this person's just here illegally, if the message you want to send to the world is, enter the country illegally, it's a crime, but don't worry about it. Show up in court or don't show up in court, get order removed, you don't have to leave. Like the last administration said, unless you're convicted of aggravated felony. And what happened when they sent that message? Historic illegal immigration that overwhelmed the Border Patrol. I was talking to the chief earlier. There were days in San Diego sector, not a single uniform was on patrol. You don't think the cartels had a field day with that? When you overwhelm the Border Patrol, that's when the cartels create gaps. That's when the fentanyl came in and killed 250,000 Americans. That's when sex trafficking women and children are sky high. 2 million gotaways, 18,000 no-inspected terrorists that was just announced that came in the Biden administration, they're not even counting the 2 million gotaways. Why did 2 million people pay more to get away? Why didn't they pay less to turn themselves in a Border Patrol, get released within 24 hours, get a free airline ticket to the city of their choice, get a free hotel room, get 3 square meals a day, and get work authorization within a couple months? Why did 2 million people pay more not to take advantage of that giveaway program? Because they didn't want to be vetted. They didn't want to be fingerprinted. That should scare the hell out of everybody. It does me. And that's why President Trump brought all the government together. DHS, CBP, ICE, we're all working very, very close with the intelligence community, FBI. And you know, and the numbers prove it. We will not rest until we make sure every public safety threat, illegal alien in this country is removed. That's the priority. But if you're in the country illegally, you're not off the table. We'll give you a due process in court. A lot of the people we arrested, well, a lot of people aren't criminal aliens. A lot of them are fugitives. They've had the due process at great taxpayer expense, but in order removed by a federal judge. We're looking for them, we're going to deport them. If you're in the country illegally and we find you during an operation, we'll put you in front of an immigration judge. He'll make the determination if you should stay or not. We're going to enforce the law. We're sending that clear message. Again, sending that clear message created the most secure border in the history of the nation. This makes this country safe again, and is saving lives. The most vulnerable people in the world aren't making that journey anymore. I'm not standing in the back of the tractor trailer with 19 dead people to bake to death. They're not pulling children out of the water or giving CPR to a child that drowned in the river. President Trump's policies are saving thousands of lives. Even the border wall, people say that's a vanity project. You know one of the most important things about the border wall is? The most vulnerable, the women and children can't get over that wall. They're going to a place where there's not a wall, and what's waiting on them? The men and women who Border Patrol who save thousands of lives every year. This is the right thing to do. I've worked for 6 different presidents. I've seen hundreds of policies come and go. I know what works, I know what doesn't. So doesn't Rodney. President Trump is doing the right thing. Most secure border in history, thousands of lives saved, strongest national security we've ever had.
I can't let that question go. I want you guys to think about something for a second. So I spent most of my career in this state. I've talked to that individual you just raised that asked that question many, many times. Don't get distracted. When they start talking about, hey, who in the whole of government approach that has legal authority is doing X, Y, and Z, they're distracting you from the mission set, which is to make sure that we know and control every person that comes into this country the best way we possibly can with tax dollars. Please focus on the mission of protecting Americans, and don't allow yourself to get distracted by some of these politicians that want to have a one-off question that literally it's like a little shiny object that draws you away from the focus. It doesn't matter whose authority we're using that day or how we're doing it. It comes back to the tax dollar. And this is what I can tell you President Trump is doing. What I was told to do, what Tom was told to do. Use the American tax dollar the best you can with the laws we have in place to make sure that America is put first, that we protect Americans. And that's what we're doing. It cracks me up when somebody like that wants to talk about, well, why is John doing this instead of Jim? We're protecting America. We're going to do it the best way we think we possibly can going forward, and we're going to use all the authorities we have available to us.
So the administration has repeatedly said they're going after the worst of the worst, but there are some statistics that show most arrested in San and the prostitutes who have no criminal records. So what is your response?
Well, I can tell you everybody arrested and sent for deportation in the country illegally was a violation of federal law. And I just said we're going to enforce the immigration law without apology. Well, like I just said, a lot of people we arrest that are not criminals are fugitives. They got final orders issued by a federal judge, and they became a fugitive because they didn't follow the court order. National security threats. Thousands of national security threats have been arrested. Most of them don't have a criminal history because their whole game is to lay low, waiting here to do the dirty deed. But yes, we are enforcing immigration law. And where do we find most non-criminal, non-public safety threat, non-national security? In sanctuary cities, because we're forced into the neighborhood because sanctuary cities won't let us in the jail to arrest the bad guy, the public safety threat, which is safer for the alien, safer for the agent, much safer for the community. So sanctuary cities, you force us into the neighborhood, we're going into the neighborhood. And when we find a bad guy, many times we're with others. If they're in the country illegally, they're coming too. And let's not remember when people say, well, a lot of these people are just here illegally. They cheated the system. They entered the country illegally, which is a crime. They put themselves ahead of millions of people who are standing in line, taking their test, doing their background investigation, paying their fees to be part of the greatest nation on earth. But these people cheated the system and went to the front of the line. The asylum claims under the Biden administration, millions of asylum claims. Fraudulent asylum claims. If anybody do their research and look at the immigration court data, nearly 9 out of 10 people who claim asylum at the southern border end up with an order removal. They simply do not qualify for asylum. They're not escaping fear and persecution from their homeland because of race, religion, or political affiliation. They're coming here for a better life, and I get that, but it's not asylum. But we have millions of people coming to the border making a false asylum claim. We got thousands and thousands of people that really are escaping fear and persecution from their homeland and need us, need the United States help. And they're sitting in the back of the bus. No, we're going to enforce it. We're going to enforce laws in this country, laws enacted by Congress. And I'll say it again. The rhetoric against ICE and Border Patrol is disgusting and sickening, especially from members of Congress who want to compare them to Nazis and racists. Attacks on ICE is up over 1,800%. These men and women don't hang their heart on a hook every day they come to work. They're enforcing laws enacted by Congress. So if Congress people don't like what they're doing, then do your job and change the law. That's what the legislator's for. Governors and mayors who constantly push hateful rhetoric against ICE. I said months ago, back in March, if the rhetoric didn't stop, there's going to be bloodshed and people are going to die. People say, well, Homan's a fear-monger. How, you know, he's full of crap. We've had people dead. We had people shot. We had agents shot at. We had Molotov cocktails thrown on. We had someone go to Dallas and shoot an ICE facility and actually killed a couple of detainees. It's not a joke. We're enforcing the law. And we can continue to enforce the law because this country's much safer. 600,000, and I'll challenge you on the percentages because I look at the data every morning. Every morning on the way to White House, I look at 22 pages of data. The last data I looked, we've been anywhere from 72% to 59% of everybody arrested is a criminal. Well, some of the media wants to reclassify what a criminal is. Well, a Homan is just a DUI. That's not really a crime. 12,000 people a year die from DUI. It is a crime. So we are prioritizing public safety threats. The data shows it. But again, we're going to force immigration law. If you're in the country illegally, you're not off the table. And as Commissioner Scott says, I would take advantage of CBP Homeland. Leave on your own. Leave yourself an opportunity to come back to this country in a legal way. We're the most given nation in the country. We welcome more refugees in this country than anybody. Leave the country on your own and try to come back under a legal program. Because we have to seek you out, find you, and deport you. There are statutory bars that prevent you from ever coming back in this country. So do the right thing. Get your affairs in order and go home. It's the most humane thing to do.
Gentlemen, thank you. If you'll indulge me, I have a couple of questions. This is opportunity again. But Commissioner, I wanted to find out how many people are taking advantage of the self-deportation options you have in on that. Mr. Homan, if you talk a little bit about how many agents you're serving and when you anticipate them being onboarded, and talk a little bit about, we haven't seen anything yet in 2026, there's a published report about detaining the trafficking, and that's like going out to the Home Depot parking lot and whatnot. I wonder if you can talk about that also. And then finally, the New Orleans operation, can you talk about how police are having a new attack on those two?
As you know, Big Beautiful Bill allowed ICE to hire 10,000 more deportation officers. For those that know, I already said, over 20 million legal aliens in the country. We had about 5,000 deportation officers, vastly outnumbered. Some of these deportation officers had a docket. I mean their work file. Thousands of people they're supposed to keep track of and locate. So 10,000 more agents. We're tripling the workforce. So you see the success we're having now. We're over 600,000 deportations. Now triple the workforce. On top of that, so we have more men and women out there on the front line, a lot more, 3 times as many. Second of all, I strongly believe and have hope that DOJ is going to win the Sanctuary City battle. Sanctuary City slows down. I've been fighting Sanctuary City for decades, but honest to God truth, they're less efficient, they're dangerous, and they do slow us down. Because rather than one agent arresting one criminal alien in the county jail, they release him. Now we got to send the whole team for officer safety reasons to find him in the community. And on his turf, we have access to who knows what weapons. Getting somebody in the safety and security jail is always faster, more efficient, and safer. So as we take on these sanctuary cities, and I'm confident we'll win that, we're going to be a lot more efficient, especially arresting the criminal aliens. So I think the number's going to go up. And President Trump is still committed all the government approach. There's going to be more than just ICE out there. And the more we keep this border secure, the more men and women of the Border Patrol will help with that mission, Title 8 enforcement. As far as the hiring, I think by the end of January, we'll have all 10,000 on board. 287G, we got more 287G agreements now than we ever had in the history of the nation. It's exploded because law enforcement across the country has recognized that there are a certain percentage of illegal aliens in their communities that are criminals and public safety threat. And they recognize that. And they try to help us take that criminal off the street, make that community safer. And that lets them do other things. Rather than arresting the same illegal criminal 3 or 4 times a month, arrest them once. Work with us. Not only will we get them out of your community, we'll get them out of the country. So I think more and more law enforcement are joining those programs. New Orleans, Louisiana, that governor there has stepped up. We're working with local and state law enforcement over there, targeting the worst of the worst, getting them off the streets quicker. The more help we get, the more efficient we are, and the faster we can move those public safety threats.
So all the operations work together for one purpose: make sure that we know who is in our country and it's consistent with law. So Tom talked about 287G, we talked about the interior enforcement operations, and following up on your question, I do want to highlight the decision on the illegal aliens still exists. We created CBP One or CBP Home app so that people could actually self-deport. They could deport on their time. It's much more coordinated, it's easier. But from a taxpayer's perspective, even one person self-deporting through the CBP Home app saves countless man hours, depending on what the background was of trying to track that individual down. It saves a ton of money from the actual deportation detention process. It's well over $10,000 savings for every taxpayer, depending on the illegal alien in the process. That is being used. The tool is being used quite a bit. And I'll just close with, we're ramping it up right now. And it seems cheesy, but we're calling it Home for the Holidays. And CBP will help you get home safely, commercial airline, however you need it, and we'll give you $1,000 once you're out of the country and back in your home country. That is the easiest, best, safest way to deport, and it's almost like the jail aspect that Tom talked about. People want it. This is what I told my guys. We're going to go out, we target. When we go out, we know who we're going to arrest, we're going to try. But I refuse to tell federal agents to ever ignore other illegal activity going on in front of them, and being in the country illegally is a crime. The best way you can save us from having that negative interaction is use the CBP Home app. Self-deport. Saves us all a lot of time and a lot of money. It's a very useful tool.
President Trump said that your Secretary don't get along and both do a great job. Could you speak to those tensions and whether that leadership struggle will come to impact agency goals in 2020?
Look, the bottom line is, the numbers I just explained to you show this administration is knocking it out of the ballpark. Rodney's one of my closest friends. We disagree on things. The bottom line is we work together to create the most secure border in the history of this nation. We have record deportations. Secretary's out there doing a great job. I mean, look at the numbers. The numbers are there where they're now. But when you get people with decades of experience, there may be disagreements, but that's been overplayed so much it's ridiculous. We all come to work every day. We're working for the greatest president in the history of this nation. I don't care if you like that or not. I know a lot of people get pissed off when I say that. I worked for 6 presidents. 6. I'm a border guy. No one's done border security, national security, and immigration enforcement better than President Trump. His success is unprecedented. And we're all working for that man. And it's his leadership and his guidance that's caused the success. He brought Secretary Homan, he brought me in, brought Rodney Scott in, brought a lot of good people in, and the success proves it. So despite all the stories out there about we're all infighting, we're a team, and the numbers prove the success of this team.
I just wanted to follow up regarding that announcement about the militarized zones here in the part of the sector. Can you explain what exactly is that going to look like in San Diego? Is it going to be more this, or exactly what is going to be happening?
So our interaction with Department of War, whether it be what we call an NDA, National Defense Area, or other locations, again, we're going to hear a theme: one team, one fight. The numbers will change depending on what we believe the threat and the requirement is to make sure that we have that section of border sealed. And when I say sealed, I mean we want to know everything that crosses, and we want to be able to interdict it, make a conscious decision consistent with law, who gets to come and stay in this country. The numbers will fluctuate. The Department of War is exactly like CBP. It's a national entity. So we're looking at the national security aspects. We're looking at the entire southwest border, not just San Diego sector, or San Diego County even. So the numbers will fluctuate, but we will ask for whatever support we need from the Department of War to make sure that the people in San Diego and the people of this entire country are safe.
And what the CBP in my current guidelines are now when lives are at risk near the border. So CBP is still saving lives,
100%. So I'll get into the weeds a little bit on your question, but the number one way that CBP right now today, as we speak, is saving countless lives is we've changed the decision matrix for the potential illegal alien. They're not paying the cartels. We went from 18,000 encounters in the last administration in a single day, with hundreds, probably thousands of miles of border completely unmanned because every agent was taken off of the line and they were dealing with processing fraudulent immigration claims, to the point where we have it today. Less than, on average right now, last 21 days is below 200 illegal entries a day on the entire southwest border. How many people are not going to subject themselves to the cartels? How many people are not going to fall for the cartel's lies that they can cross through the desert west of here without water? How many people are going to not fall for the cartel's lies that Otay Mountain doesn't freeze? I don't know how to put a number on that, but we're saving countless lives. But our investment to making sure we're out there is even more than ever before. Our BORSTAR teams, our search and rescue teams, they're still active. Our beacons are still active. But here's the biggest difference. They're active in the field. They're patrolling in between the ports of entry. They're patrolling up the coast. They're patrolling out in the desert. In the last administration, they were locked in a building, literally processing fraudulent claims. There's probably no way we're ever going to be able to put an actual number on how many lives are being saved by this improved border security. But those of you here in San Diego, I encourage you to think about it for a minute. You have a front row seat and you've seen it. What we're doing today, we did in short spurts in the past. Where you're standing today, there were thousands of illegal aliens pouring here. There's a campground just over this hill that was considered forbidden land back in the 90s and early 2000s because we had given up this territory to the cartels. We proved here in San Diego that when we secure the border, we actually make people a lot safer. We empower the economy, which is why there's housing developments less than a quarter of a mile on both sides of the border now from here, a shopping outlet center that would have never existed, schools that would have never existed, because the men and women of CBP secured this section of border. I also want to remind you, President Trump came here in 2017, talked to the Border Patrol agents, talked to CBP officers, asked what worked and what didn't work. And then he said, I've got your back. I'm going to have policies to make what you did in this microcosm a national issue. We're doing this not just in San Diego. We're doing this across the entire southwest border, expanding up the coast, and we're improving our footprint on the northern border. How do you ever count how many lives you saved? I don't know, but I guarantee it's tens of thousands.
We have one last question. San Diego. So you talked briefly about new technologies and the idea of a smart border. Can you say how American citizens are being surveilled by these new technologies and how they will be surveilled going forward?
United States Customs and Border Protection is focused on knowing and controlling who and what enters this United States. We're not in the business of surveilling U.S. citizens. That's it.
One final statement I'll make before we end this thing. I started in Border Patrol in 1984, and I became an ICE agent. I'm the first ICE director who actually came up through the ranks. I've been doing this a long time. I want you all to remember the men and women around us in uniform, they're patriots, They put their lives on this country, lives in jeopardy every day when they wear that gun, put that cover our vest on. Throughout my career, I've buried Border Patrol agents, I've buried ICE agents. I'm begging the politicians, the governors, the mayors who constantly attack these men and women, please stop. I don't want to bury anybody else. It's not a joke. We're all there enforcing the laws. Not only I care about the safety of the men and women in uniform, I care about the safety of those we're looking for and apprehending. I go to bed every night and pray that no one dies during these operations. No one dies on the border. I've seen too much death. And for those who don't like me, wear my shoes for 40 years, see the tragedies I've seen, that's burned in me forever. And you understand why it's so important we secure the border and save lives. I want you to remember, 3 o'clock this morning, I bet every one of you will be sleeping comfortable in your bed. These men and women will be standing on a dirt trail someplace because a sensor went off. Is it just someone coming for better life? Or is it a heavily armed drug smuggler? They don't know, but they're going to take it on. Every night across this nation. God bless the men and women of ICE, CBP, and all federal law enforcement that's involved in creating the most secure border and historic deportation operation. God bless all of them. God bless this country. We're doing the right thing. There's a reason me and Rodney came out of retirement to do this. Because we believe we're saving lives every day. The men and women of ICE and Border Patrol are patriots. Hard stop. Love each and every one of them. Thank you for coming today. I appreciate you.
Thank you, everybody. If you have follow-up questions, please send them to the CBP